Just minutes ago, we're getting some breaking news here that BlackRock and ARK slashed their BTF ETF fees ahead of the deadline in an effort here to compete and attract investors with some of their lower costs. Let's talk about where all things stand and what this means for the industry. We want to bring in Zach Bradford. He's the CEO of CleanSpark. Zach, excuse me, it's great to have you here. So let's talk about some of the excitement that we're seeing play out within the crypto space right now, the massive jump that we saw on the heels of that false tweet from the SEC yesterday. What are you expecting to hear from the SEC, and what do you think it's going to do to the price of Bitcoin?
You know, we're really excited about it. I expect we're going to see approval, later this afternoon. And how we view it is as a long-term catalyst. So I think we'll see some, price action immediately after. But we look at it as another way of adoption. And the strength of Bitcoin is partially based on how many users use it, what adoption looks like, and what the access looks like. And this is going to be a brand new way for new investors to be able to get access in a way that's familiar. So we see this as nothing but positive for ultimately the price of Bitcoin, but the long-term adoption rate of Bitcoin also. We think this is going to really prove it out. The Bitcoin approving an ETF helps everybody view also the related industries around it as something that is a little more friendly, a little more accessible for your everyday investor.
Zach, we'll put the question to you as well that came up with our conversation with Steve Sosnick of Interactive Brokers of, if you weren't in Bitcoin or crypto touching before, is this the moment that changes that mindset for investors that are out there or even some larger institutional firms?
I think so, because I think that often the access or the custody or, what is Bitcoin, there's potential complications that are barriers to entry. An average investor feels very comfortable with a stock or, an ETF ownership. And I think that there's a lot of institutional capital that's been sidelined due to the risks around it. And the ETFs have now put up a system where they're going to hold it. They're going to manage some of those immediate risks around holding and custody of the Bitcoin themselves. And so I think it's a great entry point. And I think that, if you look at the returns that Bitcoin has been producing on a long-term basis, I think you're going to see a lot of portfolio managers access at least a small portion of the portfolio because I think that there's going to be, to the SEC's point from their warning on Monday, there's going to be a fear of missing out. And I think it's a valid fear because I of course, am a long-term believer in Bitcoin. And so I do think that that's where we're going to see an easy entry point into Bitcoin through these ETFs.
And Zach, when we talk about the number of the catalysts, maybe that could be on tap here for the crypto industry, also taking a look at halving, what exactly that does, not only for the industry, but more specifically, your business. How are you preparing for that? And I guess in the long term, do you see that being a massive catalyst for the industry here, just in terms of wider adoption and also what it has done historically speaking?
Yeah, the halving event is every 4 years, essentially. The rewards that the algorithm produces for the miners that are managing the system gets cut in half. And it's designed that way for, supply and demand reasons. And I think, again, on a long-term basis, as supply decreases, you get built-in scarcity, and that helps improve Bitcoin and its value. On a historical basis, in the prior halvings, when it occurs, there's usually, an upward price movement 3 to 6 months after the halving event that's very meaningful. And so, as a miner, our focus has been on making sure we are amongst the most efficient miners on an energy basis, which of course is our main cost driver, so we can stay competitive, so that when the large price movement that we do expect on a post-halving basis occurs, that we're ready to benefit from that. So, that's what I would, new investors to Bitcoin, there's a catalyst coming in April to look for that historically has led to price improvement on a long-term basis.
Zach, we're going to include you in our informal Yahoo Finance poll of the day with this question. Is Gary Gensler, SEC chair, a friend or foe for crypto?
I think for crypto, I think he's probably foe. And I think that comes to a key thing to understand is not all digital assets are made equal. I do think that Bitcoin is different. It's the only thing that really doesn't have a CEO. It is fully distributed. And I think that that's why we're seeing Bitcoin be the first one to pass through, because it's clearly, in my opinion, not a security. But I do think that there's a tough road ahead for other digital assets under Gensler's leadership.
Zach Bradford, CleanSpark CEO. Zach, thanks so much for taking the time here on the day. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me.